Hello everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Forward Direction. My name is Mary Apollo. I'm the host for today. So our topic today is the case against the Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni. Will it succeed in the East African court? I'm joined by one of the activists who had a case against Yoweri Museveni, and he failed the case in the judicial system in Uganda. And he carried the case to the East African court. So you know that the Constitution of 1995 in Uganda, the Article 29 provide the freedom of speech and expression. To the date, Ugandan Constitution is held as one of the most progressive piece of legislation on the African continent, according to the African Charter and Human Right 2009. So, with regard to the mass media, Article 29, guaranteed media platform, every person have the right to speech. But there is some acts like the Cybercrime Act and the Social Media Center. This limit some many activists from practicing their freedom of speech, and it charged them with offensive acts against the government. At the time that the government considering they are protecting the public life, some activists are worried about the absence of freedom of expression in Uganda. But this Ugandan activist, Hillary, has decided to seek justice and go to the judicial system. So just in a minute, we will see some of his stories.
Miss Hillary Taylor, a Harvard student, has sued President Yoweri Museveni and other two government officials for blocking him in Twitter. He was offended by the action of those blocking him and challenged them in a court.
However, the High Court in Kampala dismissed the case. The head of the Civil Division of High Court, Justice Andrew Bashab, declared that there were no illegally in blocking Segeya because he said handles are personal and owners have the freedom to choose who they follow. Segeya says that he was not yet connected with the decision of blocking him from following, viewing, contacting, replying, liking, tagging, and retweeting tweets from the government officials. Acting through his recognized agent Mile Mobility, Segeya alleges that the process and the decision by Justice Bashage regarding the suit were unlawful and infringed on several provisions of the Treaty for Establishment of East African Court, including not limited to accountability, transparency, and maintenance of universal accepted standard of human rights. He listed 9 grounds which, according to him, need to be addressed to get justice. One of the grounds is that the Ugandan High Court action deciding outside 90 days required by the Court of Judicial
Because for me, I believe that our free speech, speak up. If you keep silent, then you're condoning violence. Silence amounts to acceptance of racism in this world. So stop. People power! People power! People power!
The East African Court of Justice has asked the Attorney General to file a response within 4 to 5 days. The case against the Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni, will it succeed in the East African Court?
So welcome. I'm joined in the studio with Hillary Taylor. He is a human rights activist from Uganda. Welcome, Hillary.
Well, thank you so much, my comrade Mary, for inviting me on your wonderful talk show for Directions. More than humbled and honored to be part of your conversation. And I hope that with this entire time we're going to share together, we shall change mindsets of mainly young people on the African continent, because we believe that when we speak up and when we encourage, other more people to speak up, that's how we're going to change things that have been stuck for many years. So I'm looking forward to interacting with you.
So welcome, Hillary. It's an honor for me to host you today. So first, tell me what happened on this 20th of July, 30th of July, August 1st. You were blocked in your account Twitter by 3 government officials. So please tell us the story.
Yes, of course, in Uganda, we are living under a military dictatorship of General Yoweri Museveni. So for 35 years, he has misruled our country, a country that has the second youngest population on the African continent. So now we are in the fight of freedom of expression. So Article 29 of our Constitution is very clear. It does not limit, it does not give powers to any government official, even if it's the government, to limit or regulate our freedom of speech, because freedom of speech is inherent and it's also inalienable. So what happened on those dates you've just talked about, of course, 3 government officials blocked me. That's the president of Uganda, Despot Museveni, the government spokesperson of Opondo, and also the assistant inspector general of police, Asani Kasinje. So when they blocked me, of course, I looked at it on Twitter, because I was like, I use Twitter as my platform to speak up, because I'm someone currently who's based in diaspora. So Ugandans who are living in diaspora, we're about 2 million. So you silence, if the government officials silence us, yet Twitter is the most cheapest tool we can use to access them, to hold them accountable as the Constitution demands, then it means they're infringing on the articles that are stipulated in the Constitution to protect our rights. So I decided to seek justice, because I knew that nobody can take away my right to speak whatever I want. Nobody can deny me to criticize the government officials who are inept. So now I went to High Court to get justice, but I was slapped with, injustice at the end of the day, because the judicial system of Uganda is very corrupt. It needs just reforms.
So what happened before 2 months ago, when the case was dismissed by the High Court in Uganda?
Well, the court ruling happened on 20th of May 2020, and it's like 2 months actually from today. And what happened, of course, it was hard, because I filed, then I served the parties or the defendants in my case, and they also, one of the defendants, the assistant inspector general of police, replied my lawsuit, and he was giving just mere hearsay, didn't have facts to present to court, because for me, in my lawsuit, I had all the facts that show that my rights were infringed on as a concerned citizen of Uganda. So all I wanted was to ensure that I get justice, which was denied to me. And the judge was very corrupt. He was very biased. It was he decided to use his emotional feelings over the facts of the Constitution. So it's so sad that in Uganda we have a judge, Andrew Bashaija, who decided to suspend the Constitution in such a crisis to ensure that he sides with the dictator and set a wrong precedent, not only for today but also for the future of our country, Uganda. That's why I'm fighting, because I cannot leave this ruling to go ahead when it was not based on the facts. As you know, Mary, we have actually, I think currently we have 2 most popular Twitter cases in the world today. The first case was of Donald Trump versus Knight First Amendment Institute at Columbia University. So the Court of Appeal in New York ruled that Donald Trump was illegally blocking followers, because it said that the action of Donald Trump blocking the followers on Twitter, it was infringing on the First Amendment of this country, United States. Now, the First Amendment of US is Article 29 of the Constitution of Uganda, because both talk about freedom of expression. Now, of course, I was expecting very much for the judge of Uganda, Uganda's High Court, Andrew Bashaija, to appreciate the case of Donald Trump, because it was persuasive enough for him to rely on and come up with a precedent that will be good for our country to protect freedom of speech. But now what they are doing, of course, with such a corrupt judge, they just want to silence government dissidents like me. They think that when we come out to expose the rotten regime of this dictator, Yoweri Museveni, then we are portraying a wrong image before the international community. But we have to open mindsets of Ugandans, because gone are the days when we kept silent. So today we have to keep, speaking up, and that's why I say that other than wasting time, appealing in the Ugandan corrupt judicial system or courts, it's rather good for me to go to an international court or a regional court.
Just
because
exactly tell me what the judge decision was. What did he tell you?
All right. So now, basically, I demanded for two things in my case, because I wanted to have the judicial review of my lawsuit, and also I was asking for human rights enforcement. Now, the judge was, in his own thinking, was telling me that I cannot ask for two things in the High Court of Uganda. So he was telling me to ask for one thing. He was, in other words, comparing me to someone who's asking for two, who is doing two things at a go, like hitting two birds with one stone. So he said Hillary is like someone who is fishing, and at the same time, I'm also hunting. So he was like, I cannot do that. But in our constitution or in our laws, it's acceptable. You can ask for two things at a go. So the judge, of course, he was biased. He came up with such a ridiculous ruling. And then the judge was telling us that in the case of Donald J. Trump, is different from the laws of Uganda, because Uganda is following the common law, which is different from the US case. But again, this case does not have a precedent, because in law they use old cases, come up with new rulings. So if the judge could not appreciate the persuasiveness of the case of Donald Trump versus Knight First Amendment East at Columbia University, then it speaks volumes to the kind of judges we have in the corrupt courts of Uganda. And the judge, of course, was saying that I cannot sue public officials. So he was advising me to sue public bodies. So in my own thinking, I was like, what the hell was this judge talking about? Why can't I sue, public officials? So now the judge is like, he's giving more powers to public officials, which the constitution does not give them. So that's why, for me, I was not contented with this fraud ruling, because even the judge, with my reliable information, I was told that the wife of the judge works in State House. Now, the State House is the office of the president. So if the wife of the judge is working in the office of the president, yet the president is a defendant in my case, by no means could I get even justice. So that's why you see it was biased. But if the judge was transparent enough, he would have stepped aside, because this was a conflict of interest in my case. If you have a wife working in the president's office, you're not going to give the plaintiff, justice. And that's why he had to, side with the dictator, because most judges in Uganda are working on directives from the president, not with the facts or the laws that are stipulated in our constitution, which is so sad. And that's why we are rising up and speaking up to ensure that we fix the mess in our government system or arms.
So beside of the 1995 constitution of Uganda that allow Article 29 provide the freedom of speech, also the Ugandan constitution considered as one of the most progressive constitution in the continent, compared to some countries like Zimbabwe, Kenya, and elsewhere, who doesn't have this as a constitutional crime. But what is the problem?
Well, that's a lie if you say that Uganda's constitution is one of the most progressive on the African continent. Now, you see, our constitution has been raped years and again by different leaders. Because if you go in the 1970s, we had President for Life, Field Marshal Idi Amin Dada. He was a notorious dictator. Now, go to the 80s, of course, we had Dr. Milton Obote. He also came up with a pigeonhole constitution. So he was also, coming up with ridiculous rules. Now, in 1995, of course, this dictator Museveni came up with this constitution and the CA to ensure that we bring rule of law back to our country. So, of course, when the dictator came to power, Ugandans had a lot of hope in him, because he promised to restore rule of law. He promised to bring democracy to our country. So that's why he was so visionary, and our parents, trusted him to, become the leader. Because in 1986, when the president came to power, he was a rebel, because he overthrew the government and became the president. He was a rebel, and our parents trusted him. But now that trust has gone away, because he has failed to keep the promises that he came with during the time of 1986. Now, with this constitution of 1995, of course, it has been also changed or amended just in his favors to ensure that he strengthens his grip onto power. So recently, of course, he amended Article 102B, which is very important because Article 102B talks about the age limit. Now, the president, the Constitution says in Article 102B, before it was amended, before 2018, when it was amended, that any leader, a president will be in power not above or beyond the age of 75. Now, because the dictator has reached that age limit that was in our Constitution of 1995, he had to bribe legislators in order to amend the Constitution in his favor to remove the age limit. So that's how you see that the Constitution has lost meaning. So he asks the citizens now to rise up and bring back that meaning to the Constitution. It's now asked the citizen to do the right thing, to speak up and ensure that we get a new government that is going to be willing to amend the Constitution that will be serving the interests of the people, not just a few individuals like dictator Yoweri Museveni. So now the Constitution was changed because he had the numbers in Parliament and it's like it's owning the treasury of our country, or is like, in other words, is like I could say like the finance minister of Uganda, because the finance minister we have is a puppet. It's working on orders of the president. So what they did, it was to give different legislators, I think $5,000 US, that's about 20 million Ugandan shillings, to ensure that they remove the age limit in Article 102B. So it was a big fight, a huge fight in Parliament. It went viral on the internet, all over the internet. Legislators were beaten. The dictator sent his armed forces that are so partisan in civilian uniform, civilian clothes, and they beat up legislators just to ensure that they amend Article 102B. So we shall never forget what happened in 2018. And today we are fighting because we want to get a leader who's going to fix this mess come 2021. That's why we are part of the People Power movement that is led by a young, courageous, visionary leader called Kyagulanyi Robert Sentamu, known as Bobby Wine.
So after this, you decided to remove your case to the East African Court, High Court. So you have some grounds, like 10 grounds that you were asking for. Just talk to me briefly about some of the most important grounds, and why do you think it is more important to highlight the case in?
Yeah, basically I have 9 grounds that I based on, because I know that this case is very interesting, and this case has to be, listened to before the international court or regional court. Now, as I told you before that I could go to the Court of Appeal in Uganda, but again, they have a lot of backlogs. Right now, they're on cases of 2009, 2010. Yet the policy is first come, first serve. So if I was to appeal in the Ugandan court, it would take me like 10 years to get my case heard. So that backlog cannot, give me justice, because justice delayed is justice denied. And then, for me, I was willing even to take it as far as the Supreme Court of Uganda, because it has the appellate jurisdiction. But again, since the system was not fair enough to people who have rights that are being oppressed, I decided to go to the East African Court of Justice. Now, we signed what we call the Treaty for the Establishment of the East African Community. And we are all part of the East African community, including your country, South Sudan. So now, if you look at Uganda, Tanzania, Kenya, Rwanda, Burundi, and South Sudan, the 6 member states agreed on different principles to ensure that they adhere to common grounds like good governance, rule of law, accountability, transparency, social justice, gender equality, name it. Now, the grounds that are taking me to the East African community, of course, are based mainly on the 3 articles for the Treaty of the Establishment of the East African community. Now, Article 6D talks about the fundamental principles of this treaty. Then also Article 7, subsection 2 is also talking about the operational principles. So now those are the things I've talked about: good governance, rule of law, adherence to democracy, and also to ensure that we have a common system of implementing universally acceptable standards of human rights. So now, whatever actions that were done by the 3 government officials in Uganda were violating the treaty we ratified and signed, because in that treaty we have the mandate as a member state of the East African community, and also to abide by these rules. So the actions of the president messing up with freedom of speech were in violation of the treaty we signed for the establishment of the East African community. Now, I said, of course, I want nine things, basically, or my grounds are 9. So I can just give you my representative projection about that. So one of them was to ensure that I get declarations from the East African Court of Justice that whatever was done in the Ugandan court with the corrupt judge, Andrew Rashaija, was not in accordance to what the values or principles of the treaty for the establishment of the East African community stands for. It's, in other words, in violations. We are like on parallel lanes. So I want the judge, of course, to declare that that was not okay. Then I want the judge also to give me a nullification order, because the ruling of the judge was not based on competence. He failed to show me the competence of the respondent with evidence. So he was just basing on hearsay from the respondent. So I want the judges of the East African Court of Justice to look into this issue. And I also want the judge to ensure that he exposes the Ugandan High Court, because the judge did not sign the court ruling that he sent me. So imagine someone sent a judge writing his own ruling and he fails to sign it. Of course, this was deliberate. It was well planned, because the judge was protecting the image of the dictator simply because of maybe different known or unknown reasons. But in my own thinking, of course, I know that I was protecting the job of the wife, because as I told you with library sources, I was told that the wife of the judge is working in the state house. Then 2, of course, maybe the judge was fearing for his life, because the dictator can take him away once he decides that it was wrong for the dictator to block dissidents like me on social media, basically Twitter. And again, the judge maybe was fearing also a transfer, because is now operating or working within the capital of Uganda, Kampala city. Now maybe he was fearing that if I rule against the dictator, he may transfer me to remote areas, because now he's used to the lifestyle of living in the city. Maybe he fears to go to remote areas. And maybe I did think maybe the judge just wanted also to suspend the constitution, because he used his emotions over the facts. Yet one thing I was always I told the judge on my first video I made yesterday that facts don't care about his feelings. However much he tries to mess up with this case, we are going to expose him. That's why we are taking this case now to a regional court, because we can no longer rely on the Ugandan corrupt judicial system that is on life support. It needs reforms.
Some of the mission of the East African High Court, it has the good governance system, which include the good life for the citizenship, but in terms of services, in terms of regulation and respects of law. Do you think that Uganda is qualified for that, and is the case is going to succeed on the East African Court?
Yes, we are very qualified, because as I told you, Article 6D, Article 7, subsection 2, and Article 30 for the Treaty of the Establishment of the East African Community, they strongly back up my lawsuit or my appeal, because Article 30 is the one that gives me the powers to the president of Uganda, dictator Yoweri Museveni. So, of course, as I told you, that as a signatory to this treaty, we have to abide by what we agreed on when we were reviving this mighty regional bloc. Because, you know, in 1977, the East African community had collapsed simply because the 3 countries could not agree on the principles. So what led to the collapse of this African community in 1977, one, it was because Tanganyika with Mwalimu Julius Kambarage Nyerere, he was attacking Uganda because he wanted to overthrow the government of Idi Amin Dada. And again, also what happened again between Tanzania and Kenya, they had like different economic systems. So Tanzania had an economic system of socialism, while Kenya was having capitalism. So the two were parallel. And, you know, in 77, they just had to make sure that the thing collapses, because they lost the common goal they were standing for from the very beginning. So when we revived this treaty, we agreed again on the same principles. We said, hey guys, we learned from the lessons that led to the collapse of the East African community in 77. How about right now we become very serious about different fundamental principles and operational principles to ensure that we implement them in our member states. So of course Uganda has to abide by what it signed. As also a country that ratified that treaty, we have to do what the treaty says. We cannot move away from the treaty simply because we want to. We have a dictator who wants to abuse the rights of Ugandans as he aims.
So when we talk about that, because there is some act that the government is implementing right now, like the Social Media Center, Computer Use Act, the Cyber Offensive Communication, and there is some activists who were charged with this crime, like Sweba Nisamba in 2016, the case of John Muganzi, and lately Stella Nyanzi, the Makerere University lecturer and a human rights activist. She was also charged by the cyber harassment. Where is the activist community and the Ugandan citizen from that? And to the above topic, is this case going to succeed in the East African court?
Well, thank you so much for that good question. Now, you see, with the rules or the laws that are trying to limit free speech, because if you talk about offensive communication with these ridiculous laws that the dictator is trying to bring or directives, they're not coming in good faith. So this autocrat, of course, wants to curtail on the rights of Ugandans because he's forgetting that freedom of speech is an inherent right. We are born with it. So the state cannot give us the right to speak. It is the right that we get that right on birth. So the moment you come on planet Earth, a baby, that's when you start enjoying these rights. So the government has failed to understand that once you take away some of our rights, then the rest are going to suffer. And that's why we say that these rights are inalienable. We have to enjoy them as a set. And if you look at the three pillars of human rights, these rights are interdependent, they're interrelated, and they're indivisible. So if the dictator, Yoweri Museveni, thinks that he's going to bring up laws just to silence critics, Stella Nyanzi, that is wrong. Well, of course, the Ugandans are oppressed because for 35 years, you have one dictator misruling the country, messing up with all the systems in our country. That speaks volumes. Ugandans are no longer, comfortable. They've, they've stood up and now they're fighting for their rights. Yes, of course, Stella Nyanzi is very, very eloquent. She's very learned. She's a doctor, and she called the president a pair of buttocks. Now that triggered the president simply because someone said that. But again, it does not give the powers to the president to derogate our rights. So the president has to respect free speech. That's why I tell you that such directives or laws that come today, they're not coming in good faith. They just come to silence government critics, mainly those who are on the opposition wing, because they are trying to shake up the tree to ensure that we get rid of tyranny in our country, because we want to be on the same pace. We want to have democracy, because we're sick and tired of having a tyranny in our East African community, because it's only Uganda that has a dictator. If you look at all the 6 countries in this regional block of East African community. So how about we advocate for democracy? Because right now we're engaging in civic education to ensure that we sensitize, we open mindsets of many Ugandans, because the dynamics are changing in our country. So Uganda, given the fact that our population is the second youngest on the continent, we can no longer keep silent, because the young people are sitting on a time bomb. Because if you look at the youth unemployment in our country, it's about 78%. So very many Ugandan youth are graduating from universities and cannot get jobs. They're, in other words, running to different countries, foreign countries, like in the Gulf countries, and now they're doing jobs they didn't study for. So imagine your child went to university, you sacrificed all the savings as a parent, and your child became a lawyer he graduated as a lawyer, but then he cannot get a job in any law firm. And he ends up going to the Gulf countries like Bahrain, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and they're working as nannies or maids, security operators. Or some come to different countries. They come to America, go to Asia, go to Europe or any other country. So that is wrong, because now we want to have a leader who is going to ensure that he serves us in the interest of the people. Because in this dictator, we do not have him. We don't see him serving in national interests. He's only serving in individual interests within his triangular dynasty. So 2021, of course, we want to dismantle that triangular dynasty that has the 1% that is oppressing us.
So how youth can be part of this movement of change, the one you're talking about, democracy and freedom of speech, like democracy in general?
Yes, and now with the tool of social media, of course, it has become the cheapest tool any person can use today in the world in order to, express themselves. Of course, we've seen the Arab Spring. It has brought changes, also on the African continent. If you look at countries like Tunisia, they got rid of the dictator. Now go to our neighboring country in the north, that is it's Sudan. Sudan also got rid of the dictator Omar el-Bashir, and right now is serving for his crimes or atrocities that he committed to the people of Sudan. Now, the same thing, of course, is the revolution is, of course, giving us lessons as people in Uganda who are living in a military dictatorship. So we're also taking notes, and now we are learning, we're embracing whatever is happening, and now we are rising up. That's why we're speaking, because we are using the same tools that other people have used in Egypt. You saw what happened. They got rid of Hosni Mubarak, and now of course, the country is getting changes. Go to different countries like the Gambia. It's a very small country, but they got rid of the dictator Yahya Jammeh, and now of course people are testing the new leadership. If you go to Zimbabwe, they were able also to get rid of the dictator Uncle Robert Mugabe, because Museveni calls him Uncle.
How soon is that going to happen if you envision anything?
You see, revolutions don't have timetables. A revolution can spark. It can happen in phases. It can have 3 phases. It can have 10 phases. It can have 1 phase, and it ends. So it has no time lag. So I can assure you that in the next 3 months, we may rise up and get rid of dictator Museveni in Uganda. It may be maybe 8 months. It may be 1 week. So the revolutions, that's the beauty of revolutions. They don't have a timetable. So anytime people are going to rise up and, they become resilient. So what needs to be done in order for the revolution to be successful? It just needs unity. People have to unite. People have to be courageous also, and people have to be resilient. So if you have those 3 things, then you can, defeat dictators like Yoweri Museveni. And of course, Ugandans are emulating lessons. So if you go to countries like Venezuela, you see people rising up. We're taking notes. So if you go today on Facebook, you see young people, young Ugandans, they are speaking up against this operation and repression of Museveni. If you go on Twitter, we are doing the same thing. We are speaking up. We are exposing them to the international community, because we want all stakeholders to know that in Uganda, the country is collapsing before our eyes, and we can no longer look at our country collapsing, yet we have the potential to get rid of this dictator. So I'm proud that, of course, young people are registering also they registered in numbers, in very large volumes, to ensure that they cast their votes come 2021, because we want to peacefully and democratically defeat this dictator, because we want to embarrass him democratically. That we called him for a very long time to step aside, but he refused. Now, come 2021, in Feb, probably, if the Electoral Commission does not change the dates, or in March, we shall be voting in large numbers, because now, since we have the numbers as millennials in our country, we are siding with Bobby Wine, because he's also young. He has come from the ghetto. He sides with very many people. So he's a person who appeals to the young and to the old. So everyone, of course, is doing everything possible to ensure that our generation should be the last one, and should be ready to end autocracy come next year in February or March.
So For the upcoming election, currently, like the government have announced the electronic system for voting, and the people under 18 years old will not be able to vote. So, how do you envision that within the context of freedom of speech?
Now, you see, of course, whatever they're doing is because the regime is panicking. The dictator sees no chance of winning the election of 2021. Now, he has used the pandemic, COVID-19, to ensure that he silences government critics, mainly Ugandans on the opposition, because he knows that people were, organizing for elections. Now, when he comes out and says that we're going to have a scientific election, because he's using that word scientific. There is nowhere in the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda where it talks about scientific elections. Of course, for years, since 1995, with that constitution, we've been having, from 1966, when we first had our peaceful elections, we were following a traditional election, one man, one vote by ballot. So we have never used the scientific election, and I don't know why the dictator is panicking with scientific elections. I don't know why he thinks that we can have a successful election that is digital. Because you see, Uganda is a country that is struggling in many things, because we are still backward in terms of technological infrastructure. So we don't have that infrastructure that is, well developed like the one in countries like United States of America or UK or Japan. So we cannot base on that failed infrastructure, because first of all, look at our internet. We're still having 2G. So if countries like China are using 5G, if countries like US, they're using 4 and 5G, and Uganda is using 2G, 3G. So how are we going to organize a very fair and free election? Of course, there is no way, because he knows that the broadband in our country, Uganda, is very slow. So if you go to remote areas, some remote areas do not have internet. So what assurance is the dictator, Yoweri Museveni, giving to Ugandans that we're going to have a very trusted, powerful, sustainable infrastructure of technology that is going to have to conduct a free and fair election? Of course, no. That's why we are resisting his so-called scientific actions. We are demanding for a traditional election. So if he fears the traditional election, then let him pave way for us who want a traditional election. So there is nothing like scientific. And if you look at countries like Burundi, they were able to organize a traditional election during the pandemic. So why is dictator Museveni afraid or fearing? So go to countries like Malawi that overthrew dictator Peter Mutharika. They organized a traditional election, and Peter Mutharika was voted out of power. So the same thing is going to happen in Uganda. We shall organize a traditional election. We're going to boycott, or we're saying no to scientific elections, because there is no reason as to why you cannot have it. Because Uganda, in this pandemic of coronavirus, we have 0 deaths of coronavirus. So no Ugandan has died of coronavirus,
But it's still,
which is a good thing. So now, if the government is using fear just to violate our rights, then we are saying we cannot allow such a thing to happen, because you cannot use fear to violate our rights. It is not written in any constitution, in anywhere in the constitution of Uganda, that under this time of a pandemic, the government is going to derogate our rights and take them away from us. So we are resisting that.
So, but still, there is an act like the Computer Abuse Act that criminalize any kind of criticism against the president. From
of course,
how this is going to be on the upcoming election?
Well, they can have like the Computer Misuse Act, but as I told you, this act did not come in good faith. So the intention was to silence us, because they know right now very many Ugandans are speaking up. They're criticizing the government. They're making our government officials accountable. So now, if you go on Facebook as a concerned citizen who has done research and who has found out the dirty games the government of Uganda is doing, then you expose them to the world using your Facebook platform, or Twitter, or Snapchat, or LinkedIn, or Instagram, and then you call for better things or policies to be done, then they're going to look at you as an enemy of the country, because you're speaking truth to power. But the Computer Misuse Act, of course, there is nothing like that is good about it. So for me, I want the government of Uganda to just know that freedom of speech should not be regulated. Freedom of speech should not be limited. So the government has basically 3 duties to do with freedom of speech. It has to ensure that it respects our freedom of speech and other rights. It has to ensure that it promotes our rights, and also it has to ensure that it protects our rights, other than taking them away from us.
So currently, with the COVID-19 the global pandemic, there is 1,062 cases of COVID-19. Just a simple question: why in Uganda? And 0 days. Why is the government not using the social media or the other groups to highlight, to work in the platform, to raise the awareness about the COVID-19, to come back out with the strategies, and give also a voice to the other activists to come out with their agenda?
Well, we have a dysfunctional government. There's nothing good we can expect from this government of Yoweri Museveni. It has failed literally everything for the last 35 years in power. So there is no trust within or among the people in this government. So the only thing the people of Uganda have to do right now is to ensure that we vote out this government, because it has failed us. It has failed our parents who trusted it in 1986 when it was, coming to power, and the leadership of this current same dictator, Museveni. So now Museveni is becoming unpopular. Because no Ugandan, I think it's less than 15% of Ugandans who genuinely believe in him. So the 85% of Ugandans, they're sick and tired of him. They want to have fundamental change, because we've grown in his regime, and we've seen the system, the status quo is not appealing to any majority of Ugandans. That's why you see that he has been rigging elections all the time. He's not a legitimate elected president. I think last election he won legitimately was in 1996 or 2001. But the other elections, he was just rigging them. So with the issue of social media, of course, they've tried to use it. But again, they've also come up with, so the government is trying to mess up with the rights of Ugandans, because now you see the same platform they are trying to regulate. The government is also coming to use it, because the government has never invented any social media platform. But when the president came up with a social media tax that requires each Ugandan to pay a daily fee of 200 shillings in order to access Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or Snapchat or TikTok, then that is wrong. So now the government is going up to use the same platform. It is, speaking volumes, because Ugandans resisted that tax, including my presidential candidate that I support, Kyagulanyi Robert Sentamu. So we opposed it. It was not coming in good faith. It was, in other words, taxing Ugandans twice. So that taxation does not empower citizens, because for us, we want to ensure that people have as much money as they can in order to, sustain their cash flow. But again, the more you take away money from people, then it means you're oppressing them. It means that you want to ensure that they are starving or they become beggars to you as the head of state. And that is wrong, because the ideal that we want today in this 21st century is to ensure that every Ugandan is empowered. That's why we're now fighting for justice, freedom, and liberty for all Ugandans, not a few or the 1% that is oppressing the majority of Ugandans.
So when you talk about these good services, just mention for me some of it.
Come again?
When you talk about the services and the program that is coming with the upcoming presidential election that the Ugandan are expecting to, just mention for me some of these services.
Yes. Now you see, you can begin, any leader who comes to power can begin with basics. You do not have to, you don't have to lie to Ugandans that you're going to make everyone, all Ugandans the entire country to become a middle income economy by 2025. Of course, that would be impossible with the current economic system that we have, also the economic status that we have right now. But you can begin with basics, because Ugandans want basics. So if a new leader comes to power, say the one I'm supporting, Chagulanyi Robert Sentamu, if he comes, known as Bobby Wine, when he comes to power and begins with issues like amending the constitution and put back Article 102B that was, removed by the dictator. So you put back the age limit to 75. Then it's going to give to reaffirm Ugandans, or to give them faith that, you know what, now the constitution is pro people, it's not anti-people. So if you say that now I'm going to ensure that power belongs back to the people, because Article 1 of the Constitution of Uganda talks about, power to the people. So the sovereignty of our people. Now, people right now, they no longer have the power, because the power is taken away from us. So it's the dictator with his triangular dynasty that are, possessing our power. So a leader like Bobby Wine can say, let me begin by giving back hope to the people, that power belongs to you, that you are going to hold accountable each and every person, whether it's a police officer who is violating your rights, we shall hold him accountable. But today, because we have impunity, so people are brutalizing Ugandans on a daily basis. So the police, the army, or all the security organs, they are partisan. They are siding with the dictator. So now a leader who's going to transform the country begins with such basics. Because we cannot talk about democracy without having our rights, mainly freedom of speech, because freedom of speech is a mother of all rights. So if we are talking about our civil and political rights, then we need to have freedom of speech. So that the leader can begin with such basics. Then ensure that services are reaching to people. Ensure that you have laws that comprehend those who are corrupt. Because today, corruption is a cancer in Uganda. Literally, in every government institutions, they are corrupt. They are swindling funds like nothing. We get loans, and money ends up going to bank accounts of a few individuals. Yet that money is supposed to empower all Ugandans. So people are misusing lots of things. People are misusing their powers. So if you come up as a leader, Bobby Wine, and he reforms the justice, you put judges with integrity in our courts, then people are going to appreciate that. And they'll be like, yes, we have our rights. Yes, we have the power, because those are the basics. Now, from there, of course, you'll be moving to the other things. Now, look at education. How can we, provide quality education to all Ugandans? What policies have failed in this regime? How can we change the curriculum to ensure that it matches with the demands of the labor market today? Because today in Uganda, we are using technology of yesterday in today's world, yet countries are using tomorrow's technology in today's world. So we want to have a leader who can also use tomorrow's technology in today's Uganda. Because now look at things like artificial intelligence. There is no political will in the government of Uganda to invest money in artificial intelligence. So how are we going to compete with countries like Russia or China in terms of artificial intelligence? As you know, Putin, the president of Russia, said that whichever country that will dominate in artificial intelligence will become the superpower in the years to come. So now we are procrastinating in terms of technology. That's why I told you that our technology cannot organize a scientific or digital election. There is no way. So I believe that Bobby Wine, of course, has a very great team of policymakers that will help him to know the fundamentals, that to begin with, maybe like in his 100 days, he can begin with those basics, reform the constitution, ensure that you give back power to the people, and also make sure that everyone is held accountable. If they commit crimes like police officers, hold them accountable. Do not give them any chance of impunity. That's how we shall move forward in the country.
I want to share with you this statistic of the percentage of population income in Uganda.
Okay.
Here, from if you can see from 1992 to 2016 has decreased, and then we say that there is the population of Uganda depend on $5.50 per day. So just how can this digital transformation be used to make sure that they increase from the income of each Ugandan citizen?
Now, if you look at the data in our country, of course, it's manufactured from places we don't know, because the data does not reflect the reality on ground. So this government, of course, is good at giving figures, but if you come on ground, you don't feel those figures in people's households. People are starving. So 35% of Ugandans are living below the poverty line. So it means that they cannot spend $1.25 a day. So when they come up with such figures that are generalizing, then they're using figures of the 1% among the triangular dynasty of that dictator Museveni to represent us. So we cannot use such formulas to say that now there is an improvement and income per capita of Ugandans. So that's for me, I do not believe that, because of course the majority of Ugandans do not have the cash flow to buy food. So people are struggling to have sustainable consumption, mainly during this pandemic, because this ridiculous government was only giving 3 kilograms of posho and 5 kilograms of beans to people, and mainly in the urban areas. And they say they will not give that food to people who are living in remote areas or in villages. But this same government has been, grabbing land from people in our villages. So our parents, our grandparents who are in the villages do not have food. Right now or today, they are depending on people in urban areas or in the capital. So you have to send money or food to people who are in remote areas. And also the young people have left villages. So right now it's mainly the old old people who are in villages. So their labor productivity has declined because they cannot engage in agriculture. Yet agriculture is the economic backbone of Uganda, because 80% of Ugandans engage in agriculture. It could be commercial, it could be subsistence. And there is no, of course, political will for this government to ensure that it boosts agriculture. Because if you look at the national cake or the national budgets, agriculture is always getting less amount of money. Security is taking literally the biggest percentage. So if we want to reform such things, of course we have to ensure that we prioritize the economic basket of Uganda. If 80% are in agriculture, then make sure that the national budget gives a bigger portion to that sector. Then go to sectors like education, then go to health, then go to IT or infrastructure development. But this government prioritizes security all the time. In Uganda, we don't have a war. In Uganda, we've taken years without a war. So the only civil war that we had, it was still organized with this dictator and the former the LRA rebel Joseph Kony. So it was also politics. Right now, we don't have Kony anymore. Kony ran to the Central African Republic. So Uganda is peaceful. So right now, we have to prioritize the needs of people. Yes, security is paramount, but again, we don't have a war. So why is the government of Uganda not prioritizing things like agriculture?
How do you see yourself as a young youth from the diaspora being part of this transformation, it's a public transformation?
Yes, right now, as a concerned citizen based here in diaspora, of course, I'm speaking up because I've never been silenced. So if you go on my Twitter handle at Hillary Taylor the 6th, you see that I instantly tweet. I can tweet about 50 times or 100 times a day, simply because I'm speaking out my mind. I'm speaking for all those Ugandans who have been oppressed or who are being oppressed by the regime of dictator Museveni. So I'm playing a part, because everyone is playing a part. It could be advocacy, it could be writing proposals, it could be civic education, it could be also changing mindsets. So when we come out and speak, of course, we're changing mindsets of different people. We are teaching them how to be courageous. So they are learning also different lessons. So again, we're in these countries where democracy is a priority. We also pick lessons and try to export whatever we learn from here to our country to ensure that we fix the mess that is created by our leaders.
So let me go to the point of Uganda currently is hosting 74% of refugees from South Sudan and 1.4 refugees generally that are coming from the border.
Yeah.
Just how do you envision the country should manage these refugees who are inside the Uganda with the upcoming pandemic and the absence of vision of a good governance, as you mentioned earlier?
Yes, Uganda is, that's a good question. Uganda is a hospitable country, besides the despot we have in power. So I think Uganda is the third largest country to host refugees in the entire world. So, of course, that's a very good thing to do, because seeking asylum is a human right. So people are entitled to that right. And we've mainly hosted people from South Sudan, from Burundi, from Rwanda, from Somalia, from Eritrea, and other countries. Now, the bad thing about our government, they are taking advantage of the refugees. So they are using refugees in order to fulfill their agendas. That's why you see that United Nations came up with a report, and it castigated our government that it was inflating the numbers.
So when we talk about agenda, what do you mean?
Because they wanted to have funds, a lot of funds from the international community, because you see, once you use refugees, then you're going to use them as a scapegoat. You're going to confuse the world. In order the world, looking at your dictatorial or autocratic policies, now they're going to look at the other side of, yes, now the dictator is hosting refugees. Maybe you can give him a chance to continue living in power. But the more he stays in power, the more he suppresses, oppresses, and represses the people of Uganda.
So going back to that, do you think that shutting the internet and social media is going to silence the people of Uganda?
Well, you cannot silence someone's freedom of speech, because we're using our mouth to speak up. So even if you use whatever laws or acts in order to regulate or limit or cut off internet, because it's going to do that come 2021, when you're going to have elections, just like he did in 2016 when elections reached. He cut off the internet. But Ugandans are now wise. Of course, we've embraced things like VPN. So people know what to do. They've used all different loopholes that are within this space of technology to ensure that they access internet and continue speaking up. Much as not everyone knows how to use VPN and other apps, but we shall keep speaking up, because freedom of speech, again, is inherent. So the government cannot take away that right from us and cannot silence us anymore.
Do you see another activist that will come in the future and sue a government official in Uganda?
Yes, of course, activists are coming up each and every time to sue the government of Uganda. Only that some of them have not gotten platforms to ensure that their cases are known or seen worldwide. Just like my case, which I filed last year on 26th of August 2019, that it became viral, that literally like very many powerful media houses had to give me the platform to publish that story. But many are speaking up, many are suing the government, and they are resilient. Of course, some are living in fear because they know that the dictator is notorious. He can take away their lives. They know they can take away the lives of their loved ones. They know they can also, kill them. So because we have lots of extrajudicial killings in our country, we have a lot of arbitrary arrests and detentions without trials. So when Ugandans look at such things, of course, they get to have like a step back. But those who are resilient, those who are courageous, they keep doing the right thing, and we are still inspiring very many to continue challenging the status quo to ensure that we have the right things done.
Okay. So a follow-up for your case, just quick, how is the challenges, how is the financial cost, how are you going to cover that? And if there are people who are interested, how they can support you?
Well, that's a good thing. Thank you for sharing that. Of course, now the biggest challenge is the financial implication, because right now I've gone to a regional court. So going to the East African Court of Justice, it's located in Arusha, Dar es Salaam. Is it Arusha or Dar es Salaam? One of the two. I think Arusha. Yeah, Arusha. So of course, now I have my recognized agent, Malema Viriz, who has been representing me since the filing of my lawsuit in the High Court of Uganda. And now we decided to seek justice in a regional court with an appeal. it will need a lot of money. So we came up with a budget. The budget is roughly $46,535.
Wow.
That is US dollars. $46,535 US dollars.
Okay.
In terms of our currency, the local currency or Ugandan shillings, that's 172 million Ugandan shillings. So it sounds, quite a big, a huge amount of money. But again, that's the price the dictator has, placed on our rights. So if it means fighting for our rights and sacrificing resources or mobilizing resources, we shall do everything it takes to ensure that we seek justice or we get restoration of our rights that are being abused, mainly on social media, because today social media is, taking over the world. We can no longer rely on media houses like TVs or the printer newspapers. So everyone is now using social media. So I'm running a GoFundMe page. I launched it yesterday, and well, I'll be sharing with it. I'll be sharing the page with different well wishers or believers, people who believe in freedom of speech, to ensure that we fight for this, for this restoration of our rights that are being abused by dictator Museveni in Uganda. I'll be using also different platforms to raise money, like Venmo, Cash App, and mobile money. So later on, I think I will share with you these platforms. Maybe you can help me spread the message to your platforms to ensure that we can be able to raise the money from different well wishers in order to fight or battle this dictator of Uganda.
Thank you, Hillary. Thank you for your time.
Well, it's a pleasure hosting me. Thank you.
Thank you, my friend. It has been quite a while.
Oh yeah, thank you so much, and have a good day.
You too. Good luck. Bye. So thank you for watching the Four Direction today. I was joined by Hillary Tyler. He is a human rights activist from Uganda. I was your host, Mary Apollo, for today. Hope to see you soon in the upcoming other shows, and we discuss different topics. Share with your friends. Don't forget to send us suggestions and what do you think about the topic, and also continue sending us up on what's your opinion. How do you envision the freedom of speech in Uganda for today's suggestion? Until I meet you again for the next show. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.